And I just got a message from Tracy Randolph, says she can't get in the room.
Okay, well, we're going to hand it off to you here in just a moment, and I'll so look into some of that tech issues. So, yeah, why don't you forward that to me as needed, and I'm going to continue very briefly with the introduction. So, Tantra presentation, meaningful, my own personal discovery, and delighted to be able to pass this off to you, all of you students out there. The format for this will, essentially Jeremy and I will teach different components. So there's a theoretical component and an experiential component practice. Theoretical is about 45-ish minutes long and a very healthy, robust practice. And the idea being that the things that we share with you here, that you have a living and embodied sense of them. That's integral to the Tantra system, is that we don't just pontificate about very abstract or esoteric ideas, but that we can have a vivid and visceral and meaningful connection to the practices themselves and all they have to offer, and greater dimensions of our person, not just their physical body or this conscious mind that we kind of kick around in quite a bit, and then there's something about a reservoir of a deeper mind in there as well, and maybe we touch on that, but that we can explore deeper dimensions of our person and feel more integrated in our life. So I could continue, but I'd like to pass it off to Jeremy here, who can continue. We proceed.
Thanks, Derek. Yeah, I second that. I'm super excited to be here. This is our first formal collaboration. We've been studying together for a while, and this has been kind of a long time in the making, and we're excited to share, like he said, some principles that we hope will not just impact you today, but things that you can carry forward. And Derek, just a side note, I don't know if everyone is here or not, so I don't know if that's another thing you want to check.
I'll dig around a bit.
Okay, perfect.
Yeah.
Let's take a moment before we'd like to do, well, I guess I'll introduce myself since Derek did a brief introduction. Then we'll take a moment just to get present, and then invite you all to introduce yourselves as well, just a little bit about why you're here. I've been studying yoga formally since the late 90s, informally since the early 90s. And Tantra has been a system that was interwoven into my study from the beginning, even before I had any idea what it really was. It's been something that has changed my life and continues to change it dramatically. And I see these same principles also impact others in ways of deep healing and self-transformation, self-empowerment, self-discovery. So I'll say a little bit more about our background and the lineages that we're bringing to our time together over this 4-part series here in a few moments. But let's take a moment just to get present. Okay, so anywhere you are, find a comfortable seat. Just a short centering. That some of you shared, well, I don't really know what Tantra is, or I know there's something more to practice that I want to experience. For me, Tantra is what really unpacks that. And it might not be a bad thing if you don't really know what it is, rather than having sort of a misunderstanding of what Tantra is. It's a word that's being used more and more in the yoga circles, which is good to hear because I think it's going to expand our understanding of what it is. It's been sort of this mysterious, system that has a lot of different pieces to it, and the way that it's been understood or misunderstood or described, it almost, in many cases, feels like this very intangible thing. But Tantra is something that it's a system that they say dates back somewhere between 7,000 and 8,000 years. So it's very old, and it's a more than just being sort of an orientation for how we practice yoga. It's really an orientation for how we move through life. That our relationship to life is something bigger, something more expanded. It's said to be the source of Hatha Yoga, And most of the yoga that we practice in the West, all the different styles, not all of them, most of the different styles are versions of Hatha Yoga. And Tantra is said to be both the source of Hatha Yoga, as well as kind of like a thread that links a lot of different disciplines that surround yoga, and even sort of related sciences like Ayurveda and such together. In terms of where we're coming from over this 4-part series, because there are a number of lineages that come out of Tantra. Um, I initially started studying with the Satyananda Bihar lineage, which is Tantra based. And then more recently, since about 2009, when I started my study with Yoga Rupa Rod Stryker, it's been more Himalayan and some of Rod's other influences in Tantra. And Derek also has a history in Baba Hari Das lineage. And more recently, we've been studying together in the Himalayan lineage. And Derek, if you want to add anything onto that, you can do so. I'll go ahead and move forward because I'll pass the mic here to you in a few minutes. But those are kind of where we're coming from, and the angles of tantric yoga practice that we understand, and the tools that we'll be sharing with you are primarily based in those systems. It's something that's typically passed down from teacher to student. So it is a very lineage-based practice. Because it's so old, it's not something where it's just sort of this label or title that we sort of jump into and make up new things, but that these are very time-tested techniques. And that's another thing that's interesting about Tantra, is that it's considered a science, and yoga is considered a science. So the idea is that when we explore this variety of principles, it's not something that you have to believe in, like, oh, I have to have, faith that this, this other reality or this deeper reality is present or is an option, or that I just have to close my eyes and hope for the best and that it's supposed to work out. But the idea is that it's very technique oriented, and it's a science, meaning we don't have to believe that it works in order for it to work. It's something that if we apply the tools, if we apply the techniques, we'll get the results, because it comes from understanding how this thing works and how this thing works and how they work together. If we're speaking dualistically, of course, and how this whole system, this whole human experience is unfolding. Another thing that's interesting about Tantra, and Derek will probably speak a little more to this here in a couple minutes, is the idea that sometimes we have this idea from classical yoga that we have to renounce the world in order to pursue the highest aim of life, which is self-realization, or the realization of this deeper divine reality upon which everything is built and within which everything is an expression. But this system also says that it's okay to enjoy the pleasures of life. This is part of the dance. This is part of the divine expression. And so it's not about renouncing one thing to access another, but how we can endeavor into both worlds simultaneously. There's a quote here I want to read from Pandit Rajmani Tigunai, who's currently the head of the Himalayan Institute, which he speaks to this point. He says, "Create a world where personal power and trustful surrender, sensory pleasure and spiritual freedom, immersion in the sacred, and the securing of material well-being go hand in hand." So let's talk for just a couple minutes about what is Tantra. Because it's a word, like most good Sanskrit words, have many definitions. So there's many different ways to define it. Of course, we're coming from this, Derek and I are coming from this big comprehensive idea of what Tantra is as a way of life, and certainly as it steers our orientation and emphasis in yoga practice. If we take the word Tantra and we break it into 2 parts, the first root tan means to stretch or expand or extend. And the root tra means without limits or beyond limitations. So it's essentially tools that help us extend beyond our limitations, something that helps us overcome the limitations that we're currently under. It also means to accelerate. So it's a way that, as it was mentioned, and some had mentioned in their yoga practice, that there could be more, something was missing. to me, this is what is often missing in the yoga practice, just because for many reasons, we have a different orientation to yoga in the West, which I think is continuing to evolve and change. But the idea is that we can apply certain tools or techniques to our practice to really accelerate our own growth, to accelerate our own evolution, to accelerate our own increased capacity for understanding, not just self, but everything else as well. It also implies that we're weaving our capacities and the potentials that are inherent within each of us through a systematic process. So the idea, Tantra also means method or technique. And the idea is that it's very deliberate how we practice. So the philosophy and the theory has a nature that is very articulated in the types of tools we use and when we use them, when they're the most appropriate, so that we can make the most progress and so that we can accelerate that progress. It's very much customized to the individual. We practice yoga in large groups nowadays, which of course has its own benefits. Traditionally, it was more custom. So it's basically a way that we can look at each of these individual incarnations of divinity and figure out what are the most appropriate tools or techniques so that I can discover the potential that lies in here that I don't even realize, and that I can awaken it, that I can bring this potential forth. And how can I use this as a vehicle for accessing this divine reality, this deeper, richer experience of life? And that it can be done both as an embodied expression, but also awakening to and accessing an orientation toward what we might call the transcendent reality. So it's really about accessing this idea that there's a limitlessness in how we can use these techniques to expand our view and understanding of reality. So with that, I'd like to pass it over to Derek and let him sort of lay some more of the fundamentals of what Tantra is and what's going to inform our approach to practice over this series.
Well, thank you, Jeremy. Appreciate that introduction. I think I'll pick up by adding another layer to the very definition of yoga, or rather Tantra. The word itself has many potential translations. Jeremy leaned into this idea of acceleration. One other component or definition is tan means to weave, something like a loom. And if you look at a loom, you'll see incomprehensible number of strings and pulleys and devices and moving bits of wood to put together the synthesis of this particular fabric in a particular pattern. If you look at the finished product, a rug, say, and you see the Persian rug, and you see the innate, or rather ornate design of it, it's like, how did that get together one thread at a time? And you look at the machine that puts it all together, and it's kind of baffling to draw all those things. And yet the system of the loom assembles the thing. It requires some intellect on the user's part as well. So tan means to weave. And what we're weaving in the particular instance of our life, beyond a physical loom, is all of our potentials and capacities and resources, both within us here and the outer world, and other dimensions that we don't readily perceive through our five senses. So there are potentialities both within ourselves and in more metaphysical domains that we currently are not in tune with. And the tantric methodologies, Jeremy described it as a science, and I kind of want to loop into that a bit more from a different angle, in saying that the scope of tantric practice is not confined to physical phenomena, right? And a very simple example of that would just be like so physical phenomena consisting of five elements, the outer world that we perceive through our five senses. Tantra also integrates, as part of this loom, as part of this weave, dimensions that we don't readily perceive. And a simple example, again, would be the mind. So where is the mind? Where do you put your stamp on the mind, the thumb on the mind? Where is that? It's a somewhat amorphous presence, really. It's that you can't put it in a bottle or a box. You can measure it with various instruments and say, well, the brain's lighting up over here, or it's lighting there, and it relates to various organ systems and so forth, but that's not the actual substance of the mind itself. So how then do we enter and access these more etheric parts of our being? And Tantra maps out these more etheric aspects of ourselves. And we'll unpack that a lot more as we go along. What does that mean? How is that put together and so forth? The idea is that we can loom together, we can weave, we can draw on all these different dimensions of our being in support of these either material wealth and good fortune and auspiciousness, as well as spiritual development simultaneously, that these things are not in conflict with one another, which is a very liberating thought. I found this to be one of the first and most refreshing insights in study of yoga, is that I'm not in an adversarial, I don't need to be in an adversarial relationship with life in order to mature spiritually. That they're compatible, in fact, and support one another. And it just felt like such a relief to give up this, to create more space around how I can approach spiritual practice. The other aspect, so tan means this loom or weave, and tra means in a dharmic way. By dharmic way, I mean in a way that's conducive to your own well-being, as well as the well-being of others, greater humanity, and the environment and nature, that our particular looming or weaving serves the greater purpose of life. Said differently, that when we glorify, or when we glorify dharma, when we pay tribute to a virtuous and integrated and generous and compassionate life, that dharma will glorify us. That it's this complete circle of interaction and relationship and connection with life that creates this beautiful synthesis or weaving of wholeness at every level. So tantra, weaving of dharmic virtue, and drawing upon all our capacities to do such. So I, in the description of this particular section, I laid out three defining features of Tantra yoga system. And I consider some of which have already been mentioned. And I consider these to be distinct within the arena of various spiritual, religio, developmental systems. The first of which is as a general statement, right? Then of course there's exceptions and enormous complexity to how all these systems are coming together and various points of philosophy. But what I'd like us to lean into this morning is the simple premise that life is a sacred emanation. The material universe and the process of life itself is a sacred emanation of the divine. In other words, the creation is sacred itself. And in holding that perspective, what I hope we can come in contact with is a greater sense of wonder and appreciation and curiosity as to how is the creation put together. It's this, it's really miraculous, right? If you study the human body in any depth, or atomic structure, or the vast limits of the universe, or an ecology, it is absolutely extraordinary how nature has woven itself together. So in adopting the vantage point, perspective that life is a sacred emanation, creation is a sacred emanation of the divine, we invite a deeper sense of wonder and curiosity and connection and wholeness. We're no longer at odds with the process of our life experience. And within that, we can move into the second notion within Tantra, and this may seem contrary to begin, but that there is no good or bad. Again, this may seem like, well, what are you talking about, no good or bad? And there's certainly lots of examples of things that we would deem as just purely bad. And this notion isn't to say that morality goes out the window. There's no good or bad, that we shouldn't behave ethically. You know, left-hand path of Tantra takes a little different angle on that, but for our purposes today, there is possible to integrate a virtuous life within this view that there's no particular good or bad, because, and here's the rationale, because each of our particular perspectives is entirely subjective. In other words, one person could think something is strawberry ice cream, I mean, very simple example, and we'll get into more extreme ones. This strawberry ice cream is great, and another person can say that is, I hate strawberry ice cream. Chocolate is the best. And neither one of these people have like the definitive angle on truth or copyrights to truth. That this is like the fundamental law of the universe is that strawberry ice cream is the best. Rather, it's a subjective interpretation. Another example would be art, right? Probably a far better example. If we look at one, my 13-year-old was ranting about various forms of abstract art and how they just didn't make sense to him, or they didn't appear to be, you know, masterful in any way. Whereas, you know, Bob Ross was the creme de la creme of artists. Right? And people could have the exact opposite view, you know, and so forth. And really have an appreciation for abstract art. And it's all held in our subjective understanding of what constitutes good or bad, for that matter. Or we could look at, I mean, it's charged to even bring it up, but like in the political arena, this plays out as well. Some people think this is a terrible situation. Other people think it's the best thing that's happened in a century. Right? So all of this is oriented around a kind of subjective polarity. Mm-hmm. And hence the premise that there's no particular good or bad. Or you could look at, you know, historic events or even current events, and where there's this kind of disparate polar charge, and still see that different people have different vantage points. And that there's no, within this, that there's no fundamental substance that we may deem as benevolent. That there is a kind of something that is inherently evil. Remember, it's all an emanation of the sacred. And within that, there's no particular, well, there is a charge around good and bad, but how do we develop more grace and peace and understanding and love and tolerance and so forth within this arena we find ourselves in. And another, this is a good segue into point number 3, another arena that we find ourselves within is this material body with all of its wonder and capacities and amazingness, and also many limitations, right? To begin, not the least of which is that it's mortal. It comes into existence, it hangs around for a while, and then slowly decays out of existence. I mean, that's a proper lifespan, and then there's all sorts of complications that can happen between A and B. And the assertion within tantric thought is that the human body is a unique vessel, that this human mind-body complex possesses the capacity and potential for self-reflection, as far as we know, that is more advanced than much of the animal kingdom, again, as we understand and know it. Different creatures have different sense capacities, so forth, that exceed our own. You know, try being a bat and flying around at night and hearing mosquitoes by clicking sounds. That's extraordinary, certainly. Or a bloodhound who can smell in 1 part per billion. There's many animals that have phenomenal capacities. And the gift of the human being is the ability and capacity for self-reflection. And what's more, so that's the kind of mental strata of the human being that makes it exceptional. But what's more is that the body is regarded as a kind of shrine. And this is where we start to rub off into the yoga asana that we know and love, right? That there are particular ways of approaching and manipulating and meditating upon and breathing into the shrine of the body that wakes up its latent potentials. So from tantric perspective, really one of the primary purposes of yoga asana is to begin to increase the flow of energy or prana. And it's really hard to have any conversation about the deeper substance of tantra without mentioning prana, which we'll certainly explore in depth. That the purpose of the asana then is to create a greater flow and ease of energy throughout this bodily system. So there's a subtle body component that's integral to the Tantra yoga system. And this subtle body is in many ways our porthole into the sacred. The body is a shrine that we can pay homage to, that we can enter, that we can treat with reverence and respect and skillfully in such a way that we can enter kind of the inner sanctum of this bodily shrine. And we do so through the medium of physical movement, the medium of breath, and the medium of awareness directly interfacing with all these interior subtle dimensions of our person. And this, a simple example of this would be start to lean into, say, the chakra system, where there's this kind of vortex of concentrated potentials within us. Right? The chakra system is very much in alignment with Tantra system at large. We might say derived from Tantra. body then is this sacred instrument that we've been gifted with. And it didn't come, at least in my upbringing and culture at large, as I see it, didn't come with a very in-depth user's manual. And the user's manual that we're going to draw upon in our study is this tantric world view approach to life and the divinity within you and sacred that surround us. And this, as Jeremy was saying, this can be approached very methodological with method, right? But as a kind of procedure you can explore. So, while some of the things that I may have mentioned seem like overly metaphysical, perhaps, um, it's not necessary to have some particular belief credence around it to actualize those potentials. I would say it certainly helps. There's some willingness and acceptance, and if nothing else, an appreciation for that I don't know everything, that there are mysteries to how life is constructed and I'm constructed that I really presently not perceiving, or just a sense of wonder. So I would encourage you to allow yourself a sense of wonder as we enter these techniques and methodologies and theories and ideas. It's largely what we came here for, to learn. That's why you study anything, whether it's a piano or violin or astronomy, to discover something that's beyond your present field of understanding. So in a moment, I'll hand that off to Jeremy. Our current game plan is to take just a short break here, a water exchange break, and then Jeremy will guide us then through a practice. And so, Jeremy, if you wanted to add anything to the points I mentioned, or just transition us into that break, this is your moment.
Thanks, Derek. Beautifully said. Beautifully said. I think you did a wonderful job at setting the stage for just how we're going to approach practice over these sessions. Today is going to be, like Derek mentioned, an opportunity in practice. We're going to have layers to the practice, but it's still going to be relatively simple as we sort of build on it over the next 4 days or the next 3 sessions. But today we'll be looking at how we can really bring a different quality of attention to our practice so that we can start to meet the moment, meet sensation, meet experience with that sense of curiosity, with a sense of openness, with a willingness to not know so that we can learn, essentially. And not learn from me or Derek per se. We're using tools and techniques that create the container, but so that your inner knowing can come forth ultimately. And today will also be a lot about building sensitivity to making the transition from looking at the body and making judgments and having disapproval surrounding the body to really feeling into the body. That there's a much, much deeper experience taking place that's way more expansive than the concepts that we sort of try to confine it into. So with that, let's do a break. Let's do, is 8 minutes good? A little bathroom transition break. We'll come back at 10. You can set up your space for a practice, an asana practice, and then we'll move on from there into toward meditation. Okay, so do what you can to eliminate as many distractions as you can from your space. I know as I've been doing online programs, dogs and cats and roommates and children and all that sometimes march through, and if that has to happen, that's fine. It's part of the experience. But if there's a way to sort of create a container for you to have a deeper sense of focus, bring attention to that as well. Okay, we'll see you guys in a few minutes. Thanks. Let's begin in a seated position. So however that's comfortable for you, potentially propping on a cushion. where you have a little low back support so you can sit with the spine tall. Give yourself a moment to settle into your seat. And with eyes closed, let the mind slowly start to settle into the body. Body seated in the present moment. Mind seated in the body. Again, entering the recognition that there's, so to speak, both an external world and an internal world. In other words, we're not just aware of the information that's flowing in through the five senses, but even what's behind the senses, even what's inside the body is becoming more present. Attention to this inner universe of sensations and experiences starting to rise into the foreground. I'd like to start with an invocation. A common and short translation of this invocation, some of you well know this, is I open myself to the teachings that brighten the light of self-knowledge. And I'll chant just one time. You can join me if you know it. Ganesha Graha Nakshatra Yogini Rashi Rupani Devim Mantra Mayim Naomi Matrikam Pita Rupani. And so we open to this idea that we're not trying to create something outside of ourselves, but awaken something that is already present within ourselves. I'd like us to chant the sound Om a few times. This will be a mantra that will weave a little bit into our practice this morning. There's many reasons to chant the sound Om. One is the recognition that it represents the transcendent reality of which we are, that's woven through the various states of consciousness, waking, dreaming, and deep sleep. That there is this all pervading reality that's ever present, that's shining through all the forms of experience. And it's to that which we align. So as we chant the sound Om, I'd also like us to experience it as an unfolding of an internal phenomenon within the spine. So it can be a mechanism for starting to invite our attention from the gross dimensions of experience, the denser forms of experience, more into the subtle. So we'll emphasize the three specific audible parts of Om, the ah, the oo, and the sound. And feel or follow with your attention that the vibration unfolds within the spine. When we start chanting ah, it begins at the base of the spine and it starts to rise up toward the navel. There it starts to become the oo sound from the navel up to the throat. And then the sound, as the mouth closes, the vibration is focused more from the throat, moving up toward the midbrain. So let's have an experience of that or follow it with our attention. Let's again inhale and exhale, taking a complete breath in and out. We'll chant 3 times. Inhale. And as a moment ago, we felt the vibration of the audible sound resonating within the body. Though the sound has ended, notice that there's still vibration in the body, a landscape of sensation in the body, an inner feeling of aliveness. Sensing an inherent dynamism of prana, the life force animating this form. However you sense it, however you feel, notice that there is feeling. And you can slowly open your eyes to come back. Let's begin standing as we move into the active portion of our practice. So find samastiti, standing with feet hip width apart so the base is a little broader for greater stability rather than feet together. And then you can allow your arms to relax alongside your body. Palms relaxed open and facing slightly forward. For a moment here, close your eyes again. And just sense this as a gesture of attention, a gesture of openness, of curiosity, a willingness not to just look at, but feel into. Now we'll begin with simple movements, raising and lowering the arms, synchronized with the breath. And after a few rounds, we'll add the chanting of the sound Om on the exhale. First, no Om, just movement. So with your arms alongside your body, inhale and slowly lift your arms into the space in front of you and then over your head as you complete the inhale, stretching out of the spine and waist. Exhale to slowly release your arms forward and down, letting them return to your hips. Let's repeat that, breathing in for about a count of 4. So roughly 4 seconds, the movement and breath synchronized, and exhale for 4, releasing the arms. Again, as you inhale, feel how the chest opens, the upper spine lengthens, even lift through the top of your head. And then as you exhale, draw the navel slightly into the body to create a toning of the abdomen. And one more time. Feeling into this sense of space within the spine, within the side bodies, and exhaling to a sense of stability as the navel draws in, the tail slightly descends. Let's repeat chanting the sound Om, just about a 6 count Om. So inhale. Again, 3 more times, and feel the Om ascend through the spine. pause here. Just feel for a moment. Noticing how it can take you into vibration, an invitation into subtler levels of sensation. And perhaps even how the audible sound of Om becomes a pointer to the silence that follows it. Listening, attentive, receptive. Inhale to extend both arms over your head once again, reaching tall. This time as you exhale, fold forward, bringing your fingertips to the floor. Uttanasana, just a forward fold with the knees slightly bent. Pause for a moment here. Let your weight be slightly lighter on the heels. It's comfortable releasing the weight of the head and the arms. And for a moment, tune again into sensation. That it's a bridge into a deeper dimension of experience. A transition from how we might often approach the practice as a conceptual experience into a direct felt sense. Bend your knees, plant your hands, step both feet back into downward dog. Initially here, bend your knees just slightly. So you're de-emphasizing the hamstring stretch. Feel that you can press your chest a little closer toward your knees. Now feel each time you breathe in that you're extending from the base of the rib cage or waistline out through both arms. And with the chin just slightly in, the top of your head extends in the same direction. Each time you exhale, invite the navel to draw in a little closer toward the spine and feel that you can extend simultaneously out through the tailbone. So as though you're exploring this pose as an opportunity to create more space through the entire spinal axis. And then, as you exhale, you can begin slowly straightening both legs, gentle rooting of the heels toward the floor. With your next exhale, step the right foot forward between your hands. Pivot the back heel in and inhale to stand up into Warrior One, Virabhadrasana 1. From there, you can simply straighten the front leg and release your arms by your sides. So we'll move in and out of a dynamic version. We'll keep a simple breathing pattern, so equal breathing like we started, with the opportunity in a few moments to possibly work with internal breath retention. So what we'll be doing here is moving into Warrior One on the inhale and out of Warrior One back to this position on the exhale. So you can start with your hands by your sides. Let's begin by exhaling the breath. Now as you inhale, slowly bend into the right knee, pitch the torso just slightly forward as you lift arms overhead. And then as you exhale, straighten the front leg, releasing your arms by your sides. Let's repeat that. Inhaling into Warrior One, breathing in for about 4 counts, and exhaling to come out, same length. Again, inhale into Warrior One, emphasize lifting the chest, elevating the arms, and as you exhale to come out, draw your tailbone down, and again, create the toning in the belly. Low belly pulls in. Once again, inhale. Chest expands, collarbones lift, and exhale, Counteraction as the tailbone descends. Now, option to hold the breath in for just one count. Inhale to warrior one. Possibly hold the breath, lift the chest a bit more, and then exhale to release. 3 more of those. Inhale. Possibly retain the breath, brighten the space of the heart. Exhale to release, belly toning as you come out. 2 more times. Feel that we're bringing more attention and more prana into the heart space. Now, last time into the pose, let's stay. You can still retain the breath for a count. Stay in the pose, and when you exhale, still draw the tailbone down and the low belly in. Stay here, and you can repeat the same breath pattern. Each time you retain the breath, chest lifts, arms stretch up and just slightly back. And with each exhale, creating a toning of the midsection and a sense of containment. Beginning to emphasize this inner dimension of prana as being, at some level, the purpose of the posture. And with your next exhale, step the back foot forward, release your arms, feet parallel at the top of the mat. Pause here, eyes closed, a moment to rest. Notice how the quality or currents of sensation in the body, more specifically the heart center, are changing. Using the practice to build sensitivity. Into subtler movements, currents, and forms. You can open your eyes, step your right foot back, warrior one on the opposite side. You can start with both legs straight and your arms by your sides. We'll move in and out 4 times as we did previously. No breath retention initially. So from here, let's begin by exhaling. Then as you inhale, slowly bend the left knee, pitch the torso slightly forward as the arms lift. So we'll de-emphasize the low back bend, exhale to release. And again, inhale. Even though we're pitching slightly forward, still elevate the chest. Exhale, tailbone descends, navel draws in. 2 more just like that. Moving steady. The architecture of practice as a way to open and unlock deeper potential within this form. Now 4 more times with the option to hold the breath in for just 1 count at the completion of each inhale. In that moment, stretch more out of your waist, lift the upper chest. Balance that with the exhale. Drawing the tailbone down, so subtle posterior tilt of the pelvis. Strong belly. Anatomically creating more opening in the chest. And pranically creating more of a container to build and collect prana. Now on the 4th time, when you inhale into the pose, you can stay. The breathing pattern will be the same, so you can still add internal retention after each inhale. And the same actions on both the inhale and exhale are present, even though we're static. And if there's no retention, just create that lift of the chest through the inhale. And when you reach the next exhale, step the back foot forward, release your arms, pause once again. Bring your attention specifically to the flow of energy or sensation in the chest. Feel that we're already starting to sort of dissolve the edge of asana practice as merely this movement of matter. It's becoming more this movement of energy. An invitation to become more present to the sacredness that's unfolding through the various forms, dense and subtle. Inhale to extend both arms overhead. Exhale, fold forward. Plant the hands and step back once again into downward dog, Adho Mukha Svanasana. This time, keeping the legs straight or mostly straight, with the heels rooting. Feeling perhaps a little more space here in the chest, side bodies. Now, with the next breath in, shift your weight forward into plank pose. Pause here, ensuring that the hips aren't collapsing toward the floor. Extend gently through the heels and through the inseams of both legs. Find the hugging in of the belly. And gazing just beyond the front edge of your mat, reach out through the top of your head. So again, creating length through the entire central axis of the body. Take one more breath in here. And as you exhale, slowly lower all the way down to the floor. Point your toes straight back. Then take your hands behind your back. You can rest on your chin for a moment. Interlock your fingers at your sacrum, the lower back. Now, as you exhale, root the pubic bone into the floor. As you inhale, draw your shoulders back, lift the heart, lift the head. You can keep the toes grounded. Exhale to slowly release. So for a moment, dynamically. And again, about a 4-count breath, inhaling. So taking your time as you enter the pose. It's all very deliberate. Exhale to release. Then this time, inhale to lift the chest and lift the legs. You can stretch out through perhaps the balls of the feet as the inner thighs lift. Exhale to release. Same thing again. Inhale, drawing the shoulders back and down. Legs also lift. And exhale. Then one more time. Taking your time as you inhale into the pose. Now let's stay 3 breaths. If possible, keep the same breathing rhythm, roughly a 4-count breath. You can de-emphasize the height of the pose if that's causing the mind to contract or the body to contract or the breath to be overly compromised. Find a softness so that the form again becomes a doorway into the experience, feeling beneath the surface. And the last breath in, lift a little bit higher. And exhale to slowly release. Release the hands, turn your head to a side. Again, follow the invitation for sensation to draw you in. When you notice the mind going into its labeling, look to that which the labels point. Turn your head to the other side. We often approach practice with this idea that we're trying to fix something, that it's wrong and we're attempting to make it right. But what if the body in each form, each geometry, is just a way of unlocking the restrictions on prana so we can enliven the vitality of the form? Body is a shrine, the bridge into the direct experience of the divine, unfolding. Bring your head back to center. Plant your hands beside your ribs as though about to do cobra pose. You can curl your toes, firm your legs, firm your belly. Inhale and exhale. You can push up to plank or tabletop for a gentler transition. And again, return to downward dog. And with the next exhale, step your left foot forward between your hands. And then as you pivot the right heel in, inhale up to Virabhadrasana 2, turning to the right. Arms now extended to a T, front knee bent. I won't overly emphasize alignment, but keep some of the fundamentals in place. Strong rooting through the outer edge of the right foot to keep the right knee widening to the right and the arch active. Feel both side bodies long here. Now, as you exhale, sweep your left arm under your right arm, taking eagle arms, Garudasana arms. So possibly as you bend at the elbows, you might spiral the forearms to connect the palms. If that doesn't happen, you can always just firm the backs of the forearms or backs of the wrists together. Let the tops of the shoulders relax. Press your elbows away from your heart into the space in front of it, and then lift them slightly so they're about the same height as the shoulders if available. Draw the chin slightly in so you feel the back of the neck long and the crown reaching upward. Pause here. If inclined, you can close your eyes. Let sensation again draw you inside. All of the cues that I'm giving aren't the purpose of the practice, they're just the signposts pointing to access points into the deeper reality. Inhale, release the arms, extend them back out into a T, warrior 2. Next breath in, straighten the front leg, simple trikonasana. Exhale, reach forward through the left fingers, unless you're reversed, front fingers. Front side body long as you release the fingers to the floor. Stack the shoulders, extending the top arm straight to the ceiling. And notice we're not all on the same side, so I'll give some more generic cues. Ensure that your torso is not collapsing inside of your front leg, so you're dipping forward. But as much as available, have it on the same plane as the legs. Stabilizing the lower hand, wherever is most supportive. Now on your exhale, draw your tailbone slightly under so you can feel a gentle decompression of the lower back. With the chin slightly in, reach out through the top of your head. As you take the next breath in, move the entire rib cage out of your waistline to encourage more spinal length. You can gaze to the top fingers or possibly eyes closed if you feel stable enough. Bring a sense of gentleness into the effort and into your breath. Each posture as a window into where there's restriction, how we might tend to shut down, clench, or engage in a pattern of resistance. Each posture an opportunity for reflection. To move from thinking we know into a willingness to know. Ground down through the feet. Inhale, slowly come back up. Exhale, release your arms. Bring your feet to parallel. And again, pause here. Eyes can be open or closed. Reclaim the seat of curiosity. The wonder that each cue activates an intention. And through that single intention, hundreds of processes, arrangements, and organizations are carried out in the body. Extend your arms back out into a T. Switch sides, so whichever foot was not pointed forward, point it to the opposite end of your mat. Bend into that knee so you return to warrior two. For most of you, this will be a right bent knee with arms out to a T. Again, find length in both side bodies and length up through the spine. Next breath in, straighten the left leg, or front leg, we'll say. Exhale to reach out through the same side fingers, staying long in that side body and slowly lower into Trikonasana. We'll come back to eagle arms here in a moment. Organize the torso and the legs to be on the same plane, and then find length in both ends of the spine, subtle tucking of the tailbone, subtle tucking of the chin. And through the next in-breath, feel the rib cage extend out of your waistline. Either gaze to the top fingers or down if necessary, or forward, or possibly eyes closed. Make the mental transition from the practice as being destination oriented, that we're working toward something that's not this, to it being a deeper investigation of this. Mind unclenched, breath flowing as freely as possible. Ground down through both feet. Inhale to slowly lift back up, arms to a T. Exhale, bring your right arm under your left arm. And you can bend again into the front knee. And again, this may be different depending on which side you're on. Last time I cued left arm under right. So with bent elbows, maybe the palms join. Relax the shoulders, send the elbows forward and lift them slightly. Bring attention back into the spine. Eyes can close if you like. Our attention doesn't stop at the surface of the body after arrangement of the gross parts, but now it looks beneath and into them. Then slowly release the arms. Inhale to straighten the legs, bring feet parallel, stretch arms, both arms overhead for a moment. And then exhale, bring palms together in front of the heart. Keep the balls of the feet where they are. Pivot your heels inside, a moment in horse stance. So the heels rotate inward, the knees bend. Ideal position is to have the knees pointing in the same direction as the toes. Draw the shoulders back and down, tailbone just slightly down. Again, toning in the belly, lift up through the crown. Just a moment here to come back to symmetry. Inhale to slowly straighten both legs. Extend your arms back out into a T, widen the heels again so feet are parallel. Then point the right toes forward, bend into the right knee, warrior two as before. Now a few times we'll move in and out of a low version of Parshvakonasana. So if you like, you can have a block on the inside of your right foot. Otherwise, we'll bring the right fingertips to the floor on the inside of the right foot. So starting warrior two, arms extended. We'll inhale into the pose and exhale to come back up to warrior two. So first, let's stay here and exhale. Then as you inhale, pitch forward, right fingertips to the floor or block inside the right foot. Sweep the left arm over your head. Good, reaching away from the left foot. Exhale to slowly come back up, warrior two. Let's repeat. Inhale, low Parshvakonasana. Arm to the inside of the leg. Left arm extends overhead. Exhale, back up to warrior two. Again, inhale into the stretch, lengthening the whole left side body. Exhale, back up. And then last time into the pose, we'll stay. Inhale, Parshvakonasana. Hand on the block or fingertips to the floor, potentially left arm overhead. Now for this version, we'll exaggerate the opening of the left side of the heart. So you can lower the head and the left hand slightly, so the right body starts to round open. As you breathe in, expand the left ribs. Sorry, I think I just cued the wrong side. Expand the left ribs toward the sky. And as you exhale, tailbone slightly tucks, gentle leverage from the right arm to the inner right knee to turn the navel to the left. Gaze might start to look up. If you're stable, there's the opportunity for eyes to close. So feeling how sensation, again, can facilitate pratyahara, this gathering and even internalizing of attention. Not over-efforting. Feeling the vibrance in the left side body. Now, as you inhale, stay in the pose, but take your left arm vertical. As you exhale, you can lower the chest a little, possibly weave the right arm under the right leg from the inside, preparing for the possibility of a bound triangle. So the right arm weaves from the inside. You can plant the right hand on the outside of the right foot and simply lean the upper body back. As you exhale, bend the left elbow, take it behind, take the left hand behind the back. You can stay here or possibly clasp the fingers. In all cases, lean the upper body slightly back, the chin slightly in, hug the left shoulder back, turn the navel slightly to the left. And as you breathe in, elongate the spine, ribs extend out of the waist. Optional, mind the shoulder, the right shoulder. You can begin to straighten the right leg a little. Might not go fully straight. Torso might be hovering above the right thigh rather than resting on it. Good. Big breath in here. Exhale to slowly unravel. Release the hands to the floor, pivot to lunge, step back, downward dog. Pause here, restoring physical symmetry. Bring attention to noticing if the left side body feels different than the right. Tracking how the experience changes. With the next exhale, step the left foot forward between your hands. Inhale into warrior two. We'll move in and out of Parsvakonasana, low version. If you want to readjust the block so it's inside of your left foot, if you're using one, you can do that now. Then with arms extended into a T, left knee bent, let's begin by staying here with an exhale. And then inhale, pitching over the front leg, left hand to the inside of the foot, stretch the right arm all the way overhead. And then exhale, grounding through the feet strong in the belly, stand up. And again, inhale, Parsvakonasana. Exhale, back out. One more time dynamically. And exhale. And then last time into the pose, we'll stay. Hand to the inside of the foot, right arm all the way overhead. Now begin to, as you inhale, bow the right side ribs toward the sky. So they start to round open, creating a greater sense of space and opening through the right side body. Balancing that with a subtle tuck of the tail, the chin, and as you exhale, rotating the navel toward the sky, possibly looking up. Your choice onto where to orient the gaze, and perhaps even orient it internally. So we're not fighting with, pushing against what's happening, but opening into, exploring the uniqueness that is you, embodied in this form. The limitations, not creating disapproval, but insight into our opportunities of where we can mature, where we can grow. And that we have the capacity to transmute stuck energies, dense energies, into expansion. Option to inhale, raise the right arm toward the sky. You can lower the chest a little to weave the left arm under the left leg from the inside, possibly planting the left hand on the outside of the left foot, moving toward the option for a bound triangle. Then as you exhale, bend the right elbow, wrap the right hand behind your back. This can be your stopping point here, or possibly clasp the fingers. In all cases, inhale to lean the upper body back. So it's more above the left thigh, right shoulder firming back. Take the gaze possibly to the sky. And if you're in the bind, option to straighten the left leg a little bit more. Elevating the torso off of the left thigh so the spine is parallel to the floor and lengthening. Breathe into that sense of space. Good. Then exhale to slowly release the bind. Pivot to lunge, step forward to the front of your mat. Clasp your big toes. Inhale to lift the heart, lengthening through the spine so the chin stays slightly in. And then exhale to fold directly over both legs. De-emphasize the effort here. And let any extremity of sensation start to settle. Breath calming, mind calming. Internal gaze. Each posture as an opportunity to awaken inner undiscovered capacity. Then bring your hands to your hips, draw your shoulder blades onto your back. Inhale, lifting all the way up to standing. And then exhale, release your hands. Pause again here. So I'm inserting lots of pauses. This was a tool that was emphasized by Desikachar, which there's many reasons for it. Our purpose is that we don't get lost in the sequence or the endeavor or this habit of thinking that we're working towards something that's not here. Instead, we're just peeling open the layers of all that is here. Opening to this idea that all experience is an expression of the divine. The divine is not out there. It's right here. Now step the right foot back, about 3 feet or so, pivot the right heel in. We're going to move into a dynamic version of Parsvottanasana. So now the hips are square. Wrap your left arm around your back. So the top of the left hand is on the sacrum, palm facing the back of your space. You can have your right arm resting along your side. This will be a dynamic forward fold. Be sure not to completely lock out the left knee. So now as you inhale, reach your right arm over your head. As you exhale, hinge at your hips, fold forward as you stretch out through the right fingers and reach through the top of your head, so chin slightly in. Then as you inhale, lift and lead with the right arm, reaching out with a flat back to come up. Repeat that. Exhale, drawing the navel in as you stretch out to fold. And again, leading with the arm to inhale and rise. And once again, exhale. Now we'll continue chanting the sound Om on the exhale. So inhale to rise. Again. 2 more times. You can again follow the movement up the spine. time, stay in the fold. With your fingertips, they can rest on the floor or a block. Now, if the hand's on a block, slide the block forward as far forward as it'll go. If you're on your right fingertips, walk the fingertips as far forward as they'll go. So again, lengthening the right side body, and you might even feel it rounding slightly. Keep the chin slightly in so the back of the neck is long. You can close your eyes if you feel stable. Soften your effort and begin to feel that you can follow the inhale, climbing up the right side of the spine. The in-breath is an internal phenomenon. It's moving up the right side of the spine and toward the crown. And with the next exhale, relax the right arm, step the right foot forward. Inhale, Ardha Uttanasana, half lift, lengthening through the spine, and then exhale, fold. This time, step the left foot back about 3 feet or so, pivot the left heel in, and you can simply stand up. We'll move into the same dynamic variation of Parsvarttanasana. This time, it'll be the right arm behind the back, right palm facing the back of your space at the back of the waist, left arm resting by your side. Begin by exhaling the breath. Now, as you inhale, slowly lift the left arm up to the sky. As you exhale, hinge at your hips, stretching out through the left arm, chin slightly in, spine long as you fold. And let's repeat. Inhale, leading with the left arm, chin stays slightly in as you come up. 2 more times just like that. Exhaling, hugging the navel in as the spine lengthens. And 1 more like that. This time we'll start chanting Om on the exhale. Inhale to rise 4 times. Om. This time, stay in the pose. Left fingertips can rest on the floor or the hand on a block. Then from there, either slide the block forward or walk the left fingertips further forward. Chin slightly in. Softening the effort through the left arm and left side of the back. And tune into the inner dimension of breath, the inhale specifically. There's a growing sense of space and opening along the left side of the spine, moving upward toward the crown. So we're not looking to access the divine out there or at some future point, but resting into the recognition that all is a dance of the divine. One of my teachers says that sensation is a dialogue of the divine. Exhale to relax the left fingers. Plant both hands, step back into downward dog. Again, feeling into the distinction of sensation between one side of the body and another. Curious to not what you think is happening, but to what really is happening. Suspending the labels and judgments. Exhale, step the left foot forward. Once again, inhale, Virabhadrasana 2. From here, we'll move right into Ardha Chandrasana. So have a block handy if you like. As you exhale, bend into the left knee, shifting the weight forward, left fingertips come forward into the outside of the left foot. Begin to straighten the left leg as you elevate the right, pressing out through the right heel and spreading the toes. See if you can bring attention to aligning the curves of the spine. So again, tail slightly tucks, chin slightly tucks. Inhale, the rib cage is breathed out of your waistline. Now, optional here, inhale to take your right arm over your head so it's parallel to the floor. This can be your stopping point, or if balance feels present, you might explore extending the left arm to be parallel with the right arm. Nothing to prove here. If you want to explore it, totally fine. If you lose connection to the experience, then you can skip any piece. Exhale, bend the left knee, step the right foot all the way back, downward dog. Next exhale, step the right foot forward between the hands. Inhale up to warrior 2. Same thing here. As you're ready, moving into Ardha Chandrasana. As you exhale, shift the weight forward, slowly making the transition. Do your best to keep the right toes pointing forward. This means that the right fingers or block are going to be outside of the right foot, not directly in front. Squeeze out through the left heel. Hug the belly in, the chin slightly in. Breathe length through the entirety of the spine. Option to inhale the left arm over your head to parallel. Option to inhale the right arm to be parallel with the left. Exhale, bend the right knee, step the left foot back. Inhale to stand up once again. Feet are still wide apart. So you can step the left foot all the way to the back of your mat, then stand up turning to the left. So wide-legged stance, feet parallel. Arms can rest alongside your body. Angle your toes ever so slightly in, knees ever so slightly bent. Dynamic forward fold here with the intention to, as much as possible, keep the spine long. We'll hinge at the hips. As you inhale, lift your arms up to the sky. As you exhale, hinge at your hips, slowly fold forward, reaching out through the fingers, chin slightly in. Long spine, good. Reverse that. Inhale, leading with the arms to come up. Exhale to reach out and fold forward. Now let's repeat with the sound Om. Inhale to rise. Om. 2 more times. Om. Possibly sensing it as this internal phenomenon in the spine. Now inhale, come up halfway if possible, arms extending forward, spine parallel to the floor. If it's too much for the lower back, you can have your hands at your hips. Smooth out the breath here. Unclench the mind. Long spine. Inhale to come all the way up. Once again, Om to fold forward. Om. Pause here. For a moment, hands can be on the floor, resting in the forward fold. Mentally chant the sound Om each time you exhale. Attention yoking to the silent sound Om. Then for a moment, Prasarita twist. Plant the left hand just beneath your heart. Bring your right hand to your sacrum. Palm down. As you breathe in, extend the heart forward, but not the chin, spine long. Exhale, begin twisting to the right, turning the navel to the right. Firm the right shoulder back. Stretch the right arm to the sky if that's available. Chin slightly in. So feel the spine long. Smooth breath here. Each time you're exhaling, cue the navel to turn more to the right. So as you approach the end of the exhale, the twist slightly deepens, but not straining. Exhale to release the right hand to the floor. And switch sides, planting the right hand beneath the heart. You can start with the left hand on the sacrum, so as you begin twisting, there's attention to keeping the hips level. As you breathe in, stretch the heart out, spine long. Exhale, begin twisting. Navel turns. Hips as much as possible stay level. Then straighten the left arm, possibly stacking the shoulders and wrists. Don't lose the length in the spine or the alignment of the spinal curves. Chin slightly in. Each time you're approaching the end of the exhale again, from the navel, not the arms, deepen the twist. Exhale to release the left hand. Place the hands beneath the shoulders as you take a breath in. Lift the heart, lengthen the spine. Exhale, fold into the space between your inner thighs. And then slowly walk your hands toward your left toes, point them forward, step forward to the front of your mat. And then as you exhale, bend your knees and take a seat. So within a sitting position, you can start with the legs straight if you like. So as though, well, in Dandasana essentially. Then bend both knees to the point that your feet flatten. Grab the front of your knees. We're prepping for Navasana, boat pose. So as you Hug, pulling gently on your knees, lift the chest, draw your shoulders back and down. Feel the length in the spine, deepening of the lumbar curve. Then from here, begin to shift your weight slightly back toward the tailbone. Lift the feet to the height of the knees, Navasana. Extend your arms forward, fingertips reaching forward. Keep the chest lifting, but not the chin. Now you can stay here, or as an option, with your arms on the outsides of your knees, clasp your big toes. Middle and index fingers grab each of your big toes. Feet are together. Begin straightening the legs. It's okay if they're not totally straight. As you pull the toes toward your heart, pull your heart toward your toes. Attempt to deepen the lumbar curve. Spine nice and long. You can either stay here or optional. You can begin to widen the feet. Like we were just in Prasarita, Padottanasana. Keep the spine tall. Steadiness in the breath, ease in the mind. Inhale, slowly bring the feet back together. Exhale, you can bend the knees, release the feet to the floor. Once again, grab the front of your knees with the feet on the floor. Inhale, lift the chest again, shoulders back and down. Then extend both legs forward. Dandasana. If you like, we'll do a dynamic version of Paschimottanasana. If your preference is to prop up on a blanket here, if you have a tendency to over round the back or the hamstrings are very tight. So we'll move in and out. In a moment, we'll add the chanting of Om on the exhale. Now, as you inhale, slowly lift your arms into the air over your head. Exhale, hinging at the hips, fold forward, reaching out through the chest. Let's repeat that. Inhale to lift and reach up. And again, no Om, just fold forward, attempting to maintain length in the spine. Now with the chanting of Om, inhale to slowly come up. Om. Two more times. Om. Om. This time, clasp your big toes or ankles or calves. Inhale to pull back, just lifting the chest. Keep the contact with the feet or legs, chin slightly in. Exhale, fold toward your legs. Let's repeat that again, just that piece. Inhale to pull back, chest lifts, spine long. Exhale to fold toward the legs. Again with the sound Om. Inhale. Om. Two more times. Once again, this time, chant softly. Now inhale to pull back, keeping the grip of the toes. Chest lifts, maximize the length in the spine. Rooting through the sit bones, the collarbones lift, chin stays slightly tucked. Stay here, smooth out the breath. Each time you exhale rather, mentally chant the sound Om. Resting your attention within the central axis. not mentally rigid. Body as this shrine for accessing a deeper dimension of reality. Exhale to fold over your legs, resting a moment here. Attentive not just to matter, not just to the form of the physical body, not even just to the flow of sensation, prana, but aware that consciousness is also present. That which is aware of the changing phenomena. Inhale to slowly sit back up. Exhale to lie down onto your back. And just a simple recline twist. You can straighten your legs out on the floor. Adjust your hips a couple inches over to the right. Then bend your right knee. Bring your right knee toward your chest. You can embrace the front of it with your left hand. And then as you exhale, draw the right knee across your body to the left, toward the floor. Right arm outstretched to the right. And if it's okay on your neck, head turning to the right. Close your eyes. Look and feel into the internal space of wonder. Not just what's happening, but that it's happening. Reclaiming the reverence for this incredible instrument. As our bridge to experiencing the sacred. Not as a confined moment, but as the total sequence of the unfolding. Inhale to raise the right knee back up, bringing head back to neutral, straighten your right leg onto the floor, and switch sides. Adjust your hips now a couple inches to the left of the center line. Bend the left knee, grab the front of the left knee with the right hand, draw it across your body to the right. With the left arm outstretched to the left. Possibly turn your gaze in the same direction. And let this pose become primarily effortless. Remove the doing, remove the endeavor that you're trying to make something happen that isn't already happening. And instead, you're greeting the totality of what is with full attention. Just this. A window into the great mystery in a constant process of revealing itself. Inhale to raise the left knee back up. Head to neutral. Begin straightening the left leg. You can then recenter the hips, draw both knees into your chest. And then, if it's available, let's take happy baby pose, Ananda Balasana. With the arms on the insides of the knees, you can clasp either the big toes or the outer edges of the feet, allowing the knees to widen and keeping the ankles directly over the knees so the feet are flush as though on the ceiling. And very gently tug on the feet as though to draw the knees a little closer to the floor. Let it be more so about the grounding of the back of your waistline into the earth. And if it's floating, if it's elevated, just draw it down toward the earth. And then same with the chin, slightly in, the back of the neck lengthens. Reduce the physical effort. And with eyes closed, bring your attention once again into the spine. Feel the curves of the spine aligning and lengthening. And the softness of attention, not bound to the surface of the body, but even pervading the center. And release the feet. You can once again draw knees to chest. If it feels supportive on the lower back, you can rock gently from side to side, more of a massage to the lower back than any sort of dramatic balancing effort. And then release the feet to the floor, stretching out the legs. Preparing now for Shavasana. The low back feels it needs one more piece. You can add a momentary bridge with the knees bent, lifting the hips. If it feels helpful to reinforce the lumbar curve. Otherwise, prepare for Shavasana. As the body now settles once again into a geometry of symmetry, let attention take its seat in the stillness of the body. This posture not being the end of the practice, but a doorway in and of itself, opening through effortlessness. Let the body be completely held by the floor. Release all patterns of holding or clenching. The quality of the surrounding stillness, enveloping the body and infusing the body. Feel into the body as currents of sensation, a living reality, not a static or dense form. Have a sense that not only is the body a living system of prana, but even your environment, an ocean of energy. Begin to feel that each time you breathe in, your body is drinking in more prana from its environment through the pores of the skin. And this life force is flowing into the spine. And with each exhale, feel this force radiate from the dimension of the spine outward, flooding to the edges of the body. The inhale attracts and draws prana through the skin into the spine. And with the exhale, it radiates, expanding through and to the surface of the body. Not an active process, something you're simply observing. Then you can let attention to the technique be fully released. And just occupy this inner experience of vitality. Now find your way back to awareness of breath. Awareness of the body. Aware of this timeless sense of presence, even amidst this apparent movement of time. Begin deepening your breath. Wiggle your fingers and your toes, reawakening the body. Letting your movements grow larger in any way that it feels supportive to begin to move and stretch the entire body. Then slowly make your way to one side, pausing for a moment on your side with this intention that you're bringing the quality of Shavasana with you. That it's a critical piece in this process of creating a deeper opening. And then slowly make your way to a seated position, preparing the body for pranayama and meditation. So, again, adopting a seated position where you'll feel the lower back having support, possibly on a cushion or bolster, even a meditation bench, anything that can allow you to be at ease, supported, and still for meditation. Then let your eyes come to a close. Settle back into the feeling of Shavasana as the foundation for this posture. Now we'll move into a pranayama practice, a variation of Viloma pranayama. To start, begin to regulate the flow of your breath equally so that you're breathing in for a count of 5 and breathing out for a count of 5. If you like, adding the softest form of ujjayi, a whisper-like quality in the throat, to create an evenness in which the breath flows across those 5 counts. And as the breath is becoming increasingly smooth, gentle, and even, feel that these same qualities are being woven into both the body and the mind. That this fabric of calm is being woven throughout the totality of experience. Now we'll begin to break the inhale into 5 parts. The inhale will technically still be 5 counts in length, but we'll break them into 1 count pieces and then pause for 1 count between each portion. So essentially, the exhale will still be 5 counts. When we inhale, we'll inhale for just 1 count, about a fifth of the breath, pause the breath for a count, inhale for the second fifth, pause, inhale for the third fifth, pause, then the fourth, pause, then the final fifth, the completion of the inhale, pause again, and then exhale for a count of 5. So begin the process. The inhale is 5 equal parts, pausing after each part. And it may take you a couple of rounds to get a sense of roughly what 1/5 of the breath is. And the exhale, complete as it was, 5 continuous counts. And as you become more familiar with this rhythm, notice if there's any tension in the process or strain. Let the effort become more relaxed. Now complete your current round. When you finish, allow the breath to return to normal. Now allow your hands to rest, palms up, wherever is most comfortable, whether that's the knees or the thighs. Feel into the body. sensing how attention is more contained inside the body. Feeling into the aliveness, the dynamic currents of sensation in the body. And feeling the body as a container for this vitality. Now bring your attention to your thumbs and feel into the experience of your thumbs, becoming aware of any sensation or presence in the thumbs. If it's helpful or necessary, you can move the thumbs a little bit so that you do have a direct feeling of them. And then let the thumbs become still again and just feel. There may be the presence of tingling sensation, an inner warmth, perhaps a pulsing or a throbbing. You may notice it increase as you notice it. Now shift your attention to your index fingers, localizing attention into feeling. Again, if it's helpful, you can move the two index fingers just a little, connecting to the felt experience, and then letting the fingers become still. Continuing to feel the radiance of prana in whatever form you notice it. Now shift attention to the middle fingers. Again, moving them if necessary. And noticing how your attention feeds the sensation. Each of the fingers are connected to one of the chakras in the body. The middle fingers are connected to the navel center, Manipura. You can simply remain aware of the middle fingers, or you might also notice awareness of a current or connection to the navel. Bring your attention now to the ring fingers. Present awareness of the felt experience. The field of aliveness. Possibly connected to the heart center. Then shift your attention to the pinky fingers. Occupying the direct experience of felt sensation. Perhaps the connection to the throat chakra. Now return your attention to any of the fingers where you noticed it was most difficult to feel them, or perhaps on those fingers you were most distracted. And again, rest your attention there. Perhaps sensing density transformed into vibrance. Now bring the tip of your thumbs and index fingers together. And here feel a connection to the sixth chakra, Ajna, the third eye center. Feel the gathering of attention in either the eyebrow center or the middle of the brain. Prana and attention gathering in this space. Attention becoming one-pointed. An increased sense of effortless internal focus. Then bring your attention to rest within the spine. Aware of not just the architecture of a physical form or structure, but also the presence of vitality, of energy moving through it. And also present to consciousness, occupying this inner space of the central axis. And rest in this field of consciousness, in this realm of being. self-aware, consciousness awake and aware of itself. You are the mystery. Begin to feel back into the wonder of this body. This temple for cosmic creative potential. Feel back into your breath. Let's chant the sound Om together. Inhale and exhale. Inhale. Relax your chin forward. Take your time as you open your eyes. Exploring the opportunity to look without jumping to the labels, but able to see the incredible wonder in all that you see. So I don't feel the need necessarily to attempt to fill this space with words, ideas, concepts, conversation. But that being said, I do want to, or we do want to open this space um, to anyone that perhaps has a question, whether it was something we covered or some aspect of the practice or a reflection. No obligation. Just wanted to let there be space for it if it was inclined. If you're joining us for the rest of the series, we're really excited to have you for the whole series. Um, as you probably know, if you don't already know, it's going to be this coming Saturday morning, the next 2 Saturdays, as well as next Thursday morning. And without getting too much into left brain logistics, we'll kind of leave it at that. But if you have questions for us in terms of, some of you are missing a session and we've already had a conversation, you can reach out to us. Also, if you have comments or questions now or that show up after our time together this morning, you can always jot them down, bring them with you for next time. Derek, any closing words?
No, the chat's also a resource too if you want to throw down questions or any reflection. Jeremy and I will meet after this talk and factor that in as we hear from you or otherwise. Um, See you on Saturday.